MDD students, those who have joined today. So, if you remember, in the last class, we are discussing about that how academic writing for the research paper as well as research thesis for the dissertation as well as for the PhD research, how research paper can be prepared and how the research thesis be prepared by a research scholar. So we had discussed about all these things. So today, in continuation of that class, and we had discussed that how we have to make a statement of the research problem, and on the basis of the research problem, we have to make objectives of the research, and then we have to make hypothesis and research methodology. And before that, we have to write abstract. And the abstract will be within 250 to 300 words. And at the end of abstract, there will be 5 to 7 keywords related with the technical terms or concepts which are to be discussed by a research scholar for the dissertation as well as a dissertation for MA or for dissertation for PhD course. And then lastly, we had discussed that what are the research methodology. And then after that, we had discussed that how the analysis or interpretations of the things can be done by researcher and on the basis of the research materials which have been collected by the researcher, and how at the last we he had to make a conclusion part, and we had discussed in our last class. So today, in continuation of that, our lecture academic thesis writing or academic writing for the research paper as well as for the dissertation, we are coming to the that how a dissertation for the master degree as well as for PhD can be prepared, and what are the chapters and how there is a structure of that thesis or dissertation to be submitted by the research scholar. First of all, there will be title of the cover page. Generally, there is a hard bound also, but nowadays it is our paperback, and there is no hard bound. And nowadays, people, the examination department of the university is asking for the soft copy of the dissertation or the thesis which has been submitted by the scholar, because the soft copy is being sent to the examiner for the evaluation. So in that way, we have to prepare the thesis. What will be the structure of the thesis? First of all, there will be the title page on the cover page, and then title we had discussed in our last class that it should contain not more than 16 words. 12 to 16 it is the standard. Avoiding a word repetitions in uppercase. Generally, the word should not be repeated in the title of the paper. Generally, we have to avoid it. And it includes a technique or concept or any significant feature to highlight a specific contribution. And then we write about the name of the researcher scholar. Then on the right side, we give the name of the supervisor and the name of the department as well as or faculty of Buddhist studies or the university where the research scholar is affiliated to for the MDD or PhD. And in that way, he has to write the name of the author, month, year, department, and university. Then preliminary pages. After the cover page, there is a inner page which also includes all the same things: a title as well as the name of the author, month, year, department, and university. And if it is a dissertation for the MA, then it is that dissertations to be submitted for the partial fulfillment of the master degree course in Buddhist studies. It should be written before the name of the author and the name of the supervisor. So there is a guidelines which will be supplied to you also at the time of dissertation submission. And then there are some preliminary pages. Certificate you have to include as per the rules of the university. You will get that the supervisor has to give the certificate that there is the research scholar has done dissertation under my supervision, and there is no any copying of the ideas or the thoughts which have been taken from any scholar or any book or any person. So these certificates are given by that, and there is a certification by the dean or the head of the department of the in where the candidate is our registered for the MA or PhD. Then there is a acknowledgement. Candidate has to write about the preface also, that why he has selected this topic and what he has done in this in a very brief manner. Then he has to acknowledge the help from the supervisor, teachers, and other library central library persons from whom he has got the help. He has to acknowledge there is a norms which has to be. So this is the our structure of that. In the preliminary page, we have to also write the chapter number, chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3, chapter 4, chapter 5, chapter 6. So generally, introduction and conclusion, they are not included into the chapters. So when a person writes introduction, there is no need of writing chapter one. So after chapter introduction, there is a chapter one. So there are guidelines which you will receive from the university, and on the basis of that, you have to write down all these things. So there will be chapter title, section headings, subsection headings, reference. If chapter there is a chapter one, and there are subsections, then 1.1, 1.2, 1.3, 1.4, 1.5, 1.6, like that you can make subdivisions of the chapters also. Even there are subdivisions of the subsection also, then you can put 1.1.1, 1.1.2, like that you have to make. There are some methods which are to be adopted on the basis of there are how they are given the subsections and the sections. And there are references also which you have, and the right side in the content you have to write down the page number, then list of the tables. If there are any appendix or the illustrations, you have to write down in the you have to put under the appendix or annexures. Then list of tables with number and captions, list of figures and with number and captions you have to make in the content page. This is called as commentary. If there are some glossary technical terms which are defined in understanding for your thesis, you have to make the glossary of some of the terms, and then you can define all these things in a very precise manner. And then summary of the thesis, content of each chapters in a brief, and then you have to write down all things in the introduction part, that why did you select this your topic, what is the significance of, and what are the research gaps, and why did you select this, and what is the significance of this study. You have to write down all these things, and you have to make a brief summary of all the chapters also, on the basis of your findings, whatever it is. So this is the structure. If you see that title page, abstract, you have to write down table of contents, introduction, literature review, methodology, main body, conclusion, list of references. So we had discussed in our last class also that how abstract can be written, how introduction can be written, what will be the what are the issues which are to be explored by a researcher, and then a statement of the research problem, then hypothesis significance. You have to write down all these things in introduction part. Then literature review. Some of the if you are writing research paper, then three, four books which are related with your topic of the research, they must be reviewed. And they, what are the, we had discussed now also that there are three parts of the literature review for making any book review of the any book, that what are the uh, approach which have been adopted by the scholars in finding the result, and what are the methodology or approaches through which they have been taken, and what are the concepts which have been discussed. Only these three things may be reviewed by a researcher under the literature review for the three, four books for the research paper. And if you are writing a dissertation for the master degree, at least 10 to 15 books a researcher is supposed to make a review, as well as research papers also published in the peer-reviewed journal. Then what are the methodology approach we had discussed in our last class? We are not going to discuss. Then the data collections and conclusion. So this is the our we have to discuss on the basis of what will be the structure of thesis. Generally, people like that in the introduction part, subject background, thesis topic background, motivation for selecting the topic or research problem, broad definition of the problem, then literature review organized according to either authors or geography or chronology or variables. We had also discussed that on the basis of the chronology of the suttas available in canonical, non-canonical, post-canonical, or commentarial literature. You have to arrange it. Otherwise, on the basis of the name of the authors, you can arrange all these things. So give your critical evaluation to show the state of the knowledge and the gaps and the directions you would like to take it in. And if you are reviewing the research gap on the works of the scholars, you have to write down here, and what are the advancement of the knowledge you are going to make, you have to write down. Then the scope of the problem, scope of the work, problem statement, precise definition, subdivision of the problem, corresponding hypothesis formulations if applicable. If hypothesis is the present solution of the research problems which are arising in our mind. So, on the basis of hypothesis, a researcher proceeds for the research, and he takes the methodology or methods of the research, that which type of method or methodology can be adopted by a researcher, whether it is qualitative method or quantitative method. So on the basis of the hypothesis, present solution of the research problem, the hypothesis helps a researcher in selecting a research method and collection of the research materials also. Then the methodology, we had discussed about all these things, that possible approaches, justification for the selected approach, operational aspects of the approach, why you are taking this qualitative method or quantitative method of this research. You have to make justification of that, and you have to write down. Generally, people write a justification of the topic, aims and objectives, hypothesis and resources. Resources means that what are your sources for the doing research, whether it is a textual, what are the texts which you are going to discuss, what are the primary sources or what are the secondary sources, you have to write down. Then the method, research methodology, and how the analysis of the data can be done by a researcher, these can be done, and what will be the scope of the research, these can be discussed by a researcher. Let us discuss that what is the meaning of the scope of research. Anyone who does the research, there he there is a time limit, there is a limitation of the research also, and within time frame one has to complete the research work, and he cannot do all the aspects related with the research. So there must be some of the scope of the further research by the research scholars. So the field under investigation must be specified and limited due to lack of time, because one has to submit it dissertation for the master degree within a year or 2 years. For the PhD, it is 3 to 4 years. So there is a limitation of the period also. So it must be specific also, that it must be completed within time. It should be a familiar field. It's the there must be a background of doing the research on the topic on which a researcher is supposed to do. So this if, there is a area or the field where a researcher is supposed to do, whether it is Theravada or Sarvastivad by or Yogachar or Vaibhasik, Sotartik. One must be very, and in that area, whatever the school sects, it must be very much clear to the candidate. The investigation must be in relevant areas. The selected area must be specific, exact, and pinpointed. The scope should stand parallel to the purpose. There is a purpose of the research that it has to be completed within time, or what is on the basis of the research gap, one has to make the purpose of the research also. So this is the thesis structure we are discussing. Data collections in under the data collections, under the quantitative method of research. There are three methods, that is the sampling method, questionnaire method, and survey method. So these three methods are done for the anthropological or sociological aspects of the research. Anyone who is doing, there are some techniques and tools through which the statistical data are collected by a research scholar, and on the basis of this data, a conclusion is drawn. So this sampling frame, relevant universe, sampling procedure, there are some of the methods or the techniques through which the sampling method or questionnaire method or survey method can be adopted by this analysis, that is the salient feature of analytical tools used. Some of the statistical data which are to be derived, there are some of the apparatus or there are some laboratory through which these data are being drawn. So main tables and the figures, results validations, it must be tested with the hypothesis as well as the research problem. Again, thesis structures discussion of the results. We have to make an analysis of the data which have been collected, and it should be interpreted critically of the results, linking the results to the sub research problems, which on the basis of that a researcher has made the objectives of the research. And what are the implications of the main research problems we have to analyze here. And in the conclusion, how the purpose of the study is addressed, limitations, areas for the further research, that is the scope of the research. And then lastly, references, we have to make all the quoted works to be listed, use a standard style like APA or prescribed journal works be given separately as a bibliography if large in number, follow prescribed style for citing the web-based works. We have to follow one of the system of the bibliography, whether Chicago Manual of the Referencing or APO, American Psychological Association, and MLA, That is the ninth edition, which is accepted in the Lumbini Buddhist University. So these are some of the things we have to follow here. And let us discuss that how appendices are also given in the form of full questionnaire, interview schedule, secondary tables, figures, a map we have to put in the appendix. Other supporting documents like newspaper, clippings, brochures, and leaflets. Technical notes about methodology. If there is a methodology of the sampling or questionnaire method, you have to give that what are the questions which were selected to be asked to the participants, and how the questions were framed, and you have to put at the end any other information that may have some bearing on the work reported. Now come to the main our academic writing point, that whenever we are writing a research paper as well as a dissertation for the master degree as well as for PhD, what are the things which are supposed to be taken by our researcher? So generally in the writing, we write but generally this I should be avoided, because in the research there is not only one person who is engaged in the doing research. Supervisor, teachers, and other personnel in the library, they are also involved in all these things. So here use we instead of I, or otherwise you can write author, writer, or researcher. Avoid the use of the superlatives. Whenever you are writing, you do not use that is the best speech was written by the author in this. So a statement should be not be in a superlative. A researcher should not use the superlative words in the sentences. Use mix of active and passive sentences. Whenever you are writing in the statement for the chapters, there must be some active sense. But whenever we are quoting some of the passages from our authors who have already written on this very topic, then we have to use the in passive sentences. So be exact, avoid the use of the words like etc., about 35, and nearly. These words are not written in the research paper or the dissertation. These words can be avoided. Keep the sentences short. There should not be very long sentences of the words, but it should be very simple in a very lucid manner. It should be understandable to common people. So in that way, the sentences should be framed by a researcher in a very short way. Use only occasionally. This is for the end, so it should be avoided. Generally, researcher can write A and D and describe the methodology and fieldwork in the past tense. Whenever you are writing in the introductory part about the research methodology, which type of research methodology is to be adopted, then you have to write down here that I have adopted the qualitative method or the quantitative method of research. Use the present tense for describing your analysis and the conclusion. Whenever you are making discussion and analysis in the conclusion chapter of your dissertation, you have to present yourself in the present tense. So this is the things they are kept in mind also in writing the research paper as well as dissertation. Do not use slang or jargon form of the expression unless justified. Sometimes people are using some of the slang words like proverb and other things. It should be avoided in writing the research paper or the dissertation. Do not present the same information in text, table, and picture form. Whenever sometimes in the country describing or interpretations of the things, the concepts are defined twice or thrice. So in that way, it should be avoided. And the table and diagram or the picture, whatever it has been given, it should not be repeated. Remember, accuracy is the more important than artistry in the research writing. So it should be very specific and pinpointed whatever you are writing, and there should not be any abrupt statement whenever you are writing a research paper or the dissertation for the master degree. So there should be flow, there should be accurate expression of the idea or the thoughts, whatever coming into your mind, it should be written in a very. So do not use the some of the bombarding words or sentences in writing your dissertation or research paper. So there are some of the guidelines. We ensure that any new term or concept is defined before it is used. Sometimes new terms you are putting in your passage of writing, but those who are not aware of those terms, there will be difficulty in understanding of those terms also. So whenever the new terms comes, you just make it definition. If it is not possible in the current passage of your writing, you can put into the footnotes and you can write down the definition of the technical terms so that anyone can understand the technical terms. What is the definition of that term? Follow one idea, one paragraph approach to make proper impact. Whenever you are writing in a page, generally one paragraph is devoted for definition or description of one idea or the thought. If the idea or thought ends, then the new idea or thought you are going to make analysis or make interpretation, then you start the new paragraph. So this is the thing that in paragraph one concept can be given. Another concept cannot be defined in the same paragraph. It should be given another paragraph. Use graphics selectively to enhance the presentation quality. If there are some of the things which can be understood through the tables or the graphs, then it can be given by researchers so that anyone can understand it. Written communication is complete when it is read, understood, appreciated, and acted upon. So whenever you are writing this dissertation or research paper, it must be understood, it must be written for the person, those who are not aware of those subjects. You are writing research paper as well as dissertation for the persons who are not aware of these facts or the ideas or the thoughts. So in that way, whatever you are presenting in a thesis form or the dissertation form or in a research paper, it must be read, it must be understood, it must be appreciated. When it is understood, will be appreciated as well as it will be acted upon. That what are the thoughts, ideas which are applied in our day-to-day life or not. So this is the our divide the matter in subsections and give them suitable captions for clarity. This is the. So if there are so many thoughts or ideas in a chapter, when you are making all these things, then you can put to subsections 1.1, 1.2, 1.3, 1.4. If 1.4, there are subsections also 1.4.1. then you make a subsection, then you put the headings of that idea, and then you can describe it. So this is there must be subsections and give the suitable captions for the clarity. Writing flow must have a logical progression of ideas. We had also discussed that whatever you are writing, it must be associated with the logic and reasoning, because whatever you are writing in this, it must be given references from the primary or the secondary sources. So the ideas must be having any logic as well as reasoning also, and whatever the ideas you are putting, it should be associated with logic and reasoning. Ensure proper linkage between the paragraphs, sections, and the chapters. Whenever you are making any chapter 1.1, 1.2, 1.1, 1.2, 1.3, 1.4, so there must be some linking of subsections in the chapters. So after 1.1, it must be linked to the chapter subsection 1.2. So you have to write down that in the next sections, I am going to discuss this concept too. So there should be linking of those subsections also in describing the or interpretations of the ideas or the thoughts. Avoid repetitive